So this video is going to explain what a rep range is and why we use rep ranges in training. So you might have seen on your training plan that there's a rep scheme such as 3 times 8 to 12. This is pretty commonly used for kind of in between strength and hypertrophy work. Things like a seated dumbbell shoulder press is the one that comes to mind, and maybe a dumbbell bench press as well. So what this means is that you're looking to do between 8 and 12 reps over 3 sets at the listed RPE. So that would most likely be RPE 8, as that's what we're typically using to kind of make it really effective training, but not kind of killing you and wiping you out in every single session. This rep range, or using these kind of rep ranges, is useful using training plans, as it's not always easy to predict exactly what weight will be suitable for a given number of reps. For example, 3 times 8 with a certain weight might not be an RPE 8. That rhymed, I did not mean to do that. But then 3 times 12 might be an RPE 10 and be far too difficult. So by using the rep range, each set can match the RPE without being too fixated on an exact number of reps. So that might mean in your first set you can do 12 reps with that weight, but in the second you can't quite do 12, you might get 10, and then the third you might get 8, 9, or 10 again. In that way, that's all those 3 sets are at an RPE 8, whereas if you just did 3 sets of 8, it might be kind of an RPE 6, an RPE 7, an RPE 8, or if you did 3 sets of 12, it might be an RPE 8, an RPE 9, an RPE 10, where we are kind of trying to push into, that's fine to do essentially, but it can be a bit too much so at that time. So rep range is very useful to use. When using rep range, again, we'll use a 3 times 8 to 12 example. How do you know when to progress the weight? It could be when you can do 12 reps on all 3 sets, and at this point, you definitely should increase the weight. If you're reaching the top end of the rep range, it means it's kind of getting too easy, and you can then definitely increase and drop back down to the earlier parts of the rep range, where you'd be getting kind of 8 reps over the 3 sets, again, with that RPE or difficulty of 8 out of 10. But you could also do it sooner. If you're managing kind of 12, 12 and 10 across the 3 sets with a given weight, that might be enough to indicate that you might be able to manage 8, 8, 8, or 3 sets of 8 with a heavier weight. And you could probably benefit from making that increase. That would fall in line with kind of principles of progressive overload, where we're trying to increase the weight over the weeks or time to make sure you're getting an effective stimulus every time you turn up to train at the gym. Another way to progress the weight, and kind of just maybe a more thought out version of what we've just talked about, could be if you're meeting kind of the middle number of reps over the 3 sets. So if we talk about a rep range of 3 times 8 to 12, 3 times 10 is that middle number, and increasing that to kind of the actual number of reps would be 30 reps over the 3 sets. So if you can manage 30 reps over the 3 sets, that could again be an indicator to increase the weight. That doesn't need to be 3 sets of 10. It could be 12 reps, then 10 reps, then 8 reps. If you did increase the weight, kind of using whichever of those 3 kind of different methods we've talked about, or kind of ideas to then indicate that it's time to increase the weight, and you don't get in the rep range we've set, that's okay. If it says 3 times 8 to 12, but you only manage 8, then 7, then 6, that's fine. Again, you can just stick with that weight and try and build up to the point where you can do those 3 sets of 8, and that is more than okay. You could, if you felt more comfortable, drop the weight back down and then try and build it back up that way. But again, if you've increased the weight, I would recommend staying with that weight most likely and just trying to build up to get into that rep range as soon as possible. And as soon as possible doesn't mean you have to rush to do it, but it could just be a thing where trying to push yourself a little bit harder potentially, maybe like edging past that RPE 8, closer to RPE 9, RPE 10 on some sets could be worthwhile, just to kind of speed up that progress and get you into that rep range we talk about, with an effective weight still. Doesn't mean if you're not in that rep range, the training isn't going to be effective. It's probably just going to be a little bit different. You're still going to be getting a strength stimulus. If it's lower than 8, it's going to be a strength stimulus, while still training close to failure is going to give some hypertrophy as well. If you increase the weight and it's kind of down in the kind of 3 reps, 4 reps range, I would suggest, don't stick with that. We want to be closer towards 6, 7, and 8 if you were kind of dropping out of a rep range of 3 times 8 to 12. This is kind of just in this example though. If the rep range was 4 to 6, obviously that's completely different, and you want to just kind of stay in that range as well. But it's most likely that it's going to be 8 plus for a rep range kind of workout.